From the Ohio History Connection, it's the Ohio Files. Ohio's past is deep, complex, and full of stories waiting to be told. With the Ohio Files, the Ohio History Connection is launching a new podcast to bring those stories to life through conversations, discoveries, and the people who help uncover and preserve them. From ancient earthworks to more recent history, each episode will explore a piece of Ohio's past and why it still matters today. So welcome. We're glad you're here. I'm Jerry Dannemiller, and this is the Ohio Files. Hello, and welcome to the Ohio Files podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Dannemiller, and today's episode highlights a powerful and important story from right here in Columbus, Ohio. We're talking about the soon-to-be real museum, the Poindexter Village African American Museum, which just broke ground about 2 weeks ago as we're taping this in early May of 2026. It's a project which will preserve and share the legacy of one of the nation's first public housing communities built for African Americans. But it's so much more than just that legacy. Joining us today is the one and only Shelbi Toone, project director for the museum and my coworker at the Ohio History Connection. Welcome, Shelbi.
Thank you, Jerry.
Of course. Let's get into, before we get into talking about Poindexter Village African American Museum and the project, I'd like to give folks a little bit of a background on you, and feel free to stop me and be like, that's not actually true. But on top of leading the creation of Poindexter Village African American Museum, Shelbi Toone is a lifelong Columbus resident, artist, curator, and community leader whose work is deeply rooted in the neighborhoods and histories she now helps preserve. Born and raised in Columbus, Shelbi brings both personal connection and professional expertise to navigating the many community members, institutions, government agencies, cultural organizations, and partners required to bring a project of this scale to life. As project lead, she has played a critical role in aligning voices across sectors to transform the history of Poindexter Village into a meaningful, immersive experience for future generations. Beyond the museum, Shelbi is a creative force in her own right, with more than a decade experience as graphic designer, entrepreneur, curator, and cultural strategist. She was the founding director of All People Arts, Columbus's Southside Gallery, and has served on the boards of trustees for numerous places: the Neighborhood Design Center, Ohio Alliance for Arts Education, and she currently serves as co-chair of the City of Columbus Art Commission, helping shape public art and cultural investment across the city. Through every role, Shelbi's work centers community, cultural preservation, and ensuring Columbus's stories are told by the people who have lived them. That's quite impressive. Quite impressive. Shelbi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. All right. We're going to just start into it because I would venture a guess that there's a few people who might not even know what Poindexter Village is and why a museum. And so let's just start at the beginning with, can you explain or describe the Poindexter Village, both as it had existed and how it existed earlier in the 20th century, and why it's so important to preserve it?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Of course.
I think the first thing that is important to understand is where it's located. So then you get a better understanding. But it's right in the heart of it all, right on the near east side of Columbus, Ohio, on Champion Avenue, between the historic Long Street and Mount Vernon Avenues. So you can imagine, in the 1920s, a lot of folks were in the midst of the Great Migration.
Mm-hmm.
And so as everyone was traveling north, what became popular and safe was the east side of Columbus.
Right.
And so originally, those areas were that area was designated the Blackberry Patch.
Sure.
And there was, of course, living there, but I guess at the national level, it was called slum living, right?
Sure.
And so when the New Deal happened in 1939, they began the idea to build Poindexter Village, which is originally 33 public housing buildings.
Wow.
That replaced the Blackberry Patch, but sat between Mount Vernon and Long Street. And those 35 buildings all housed about 12 to 14 apartments, having a total of about 400 units in the area.
Wow.
And so you have to think about how significant that is at a time. This is in the 1940s. And, what I think is significant about this story is it wasn't just about the people who lived there, but how they cared for each other, how community was formed by them living in Poindexter Village, and then the thriving businesses and vibrant living that happened around it, right? With Mount Vernon Avenue and Long Street. And so when you think about why are we telling this story? Well, we're in the heart of it all. It's the Central Ohio story. There's so many people who have been impacted by Poindexter Village story. And then when you think about all the greats that have come out of it, there's so many legendary people who have become well-known entertainers, well-known politicians and leaders for our city and beyond. And so this is a part of the American story. And I think that was great about what we're doing too is there's a Poindexter Village in every city, right? But how many times have we been able to tell and preserve that story? And with this being the first of those many stories, we're very lucky to be able to preserve that, have the opportunity to tell that story in a way that, I would consider this neighborhood the blueprint, right?
What I think a lot of people might not realize is that, it's such a thriving community. And then, that we have to talk about, at one point the decision was made to kind of put a highway.
Yep, exactly.
Right. Sort of not right through the smack dab center of it, but right between downtown Columbus and what would be where Poindexter Village is, or the Blackberry Patch. And that, the negative detriment, or to the negative impact of that, I should say, is hard to even calculate.
It is.
And to say nothing of practices like redlining and all, unfortunate chapters in American history. And, in some small way, I think what, Poindexter Village is attempting to do is, not shy away from that history and to, position that part of town for a brighter future.
Absolutely.
In a way.
Yeah. I always look at that area. It's always been thriving.
Yep.
But when you think about segregation, redlining, and then the disinvestment that happened over the years, you're really talking about a community that's always been having to deal with what's happening around it, right? This was a space that they felt safe in, but they never could control what was happening to it. Right. You can't control. They never could control that they've chosen to put the freeway straight through the Black neighborhoods. You couldn't control, policies constantly changing. Everything was always changing. So it was always about how they dealt with the things that they couldn't control. And that's why that community has so much hope and resilience and so many stories to tell, because they always were doing the best that they could do with the circumstances that they were given in this area of town, and, really thrived. I mean, if you think about what made this place wonderful, is that they are the true definition of what community means. Everything was there, how they care for one another, what it meant for a child to, for there to be some collective responsibility to raise a child, those are the good old days, right? And so, but it's unfortunate that, things like freeways, highways coming through and those kinds of things change how a community is seen and eventually erased, And so what I think this project, what's so great about it is that we have preserved these last two buildings.
Yep.
And made a space for the conversation and for the history to be told. And so that's great because the neighborhood is not going to ever stop changing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So just to put a finer point on that, so originally 38 buildings.
There were 33.
33,
and then
sorry.
2 added a little later.
Got it.
So 35 altogether.
So folks understand two of the buildings remain. Could you walk us through a little bit of like the, I got so many questions to ask.
Okay.
Right? So just so folks understand, like there are 2 remaining buildings, of which those 2 will be restored, improved, and turned into a brand new Poindexter Village museum with kind of a connection between the 2 of them. A courtyard. I'm not going to steal your thunder, but like, tell us about, how that old, how the original area now is going to translate into what eventually in a couple of years becomes the museum.
I mean, when you think about, this was a public housing story,
right?
But I think what surprises people is it's so much more than a public housing story. And so what we're getting to do is take those original public housing buildings, connect them with a modern atrium of sorts that has a mezzanine and these modern day amenities to make it feel like a museum. But we're technically not touching these buildings as far as its exterior and its integrity. It will still be there, but we are going to restore 3 of the apartments so that you can have those experiences of the eras and
from different
decades.
Got it.
But it was very important to the people of this community to be able to share their story.
Yep.
And so I see this space as a place that's sharing that story.
Right.
And so, yes, we're preserving a public housing story. Yes, we're going to talk about redlining and all the different things that affected this neighborhood. But most importantly is we're preserving the stories that haven't been shared and told as frequently as others. And that piece is what I think is special about the space.
And one of the really unique and fortunate aspects of this whole project is that there are still more than a handful of folks that live there.
Yes.
And what an amazing thing, an amazing opportunity to not just have to take the history of the place from books or pictures, but to literally hear from people that used to live there. And what a amazing thing, and I'm sure they are quite excited about it also.
I think they are all having one of those moments where they realize that they're a part of history. We say what we do today is tomorrow's history, but I don't think people really had grasped that them living in that building or living amongst the village was history being made. What I noticed too is a lot of the oral histories that we've been collecting of the residents, a lot of these folks are in their 80s and 90s, but they were 12, 8, very small children telling this story. And it's really not them who put them in Poindexter. It's the stories of their parents, and their grandparents who migrated to Columbus to get them there in the 1940s. So a lot of these stories we're hearing from folks are them literally being raised by the folks who were determined to have a better life for their family and came to this place and had this opportunity with this space to have community in each other. So it's been really great to listen to these folks share their experiences, but I also can watch them almost be humbled by the opportunity to share their stories and that they probably didn't know were so important to us to know. We want to hear what games you played and how you spent your weekends. And I think that they've gotten a kick out of that, being a part of history. So
that's great. So just to jump forward so folks understand what's the sort of the lay of the land. We broke ground on the museum about 2 weeks ago. Had an
May 6th,
amazing day out there, and so many members of the community came out, and lawmakers, so many lawmakers and friends of the project. And so now the work really begins.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
the shovels are going in the ground, as they say. And the plan is that, you know, this museum opens early 2028. So
Correct.
that's only about a little over a year and a half from right now.
Yeah.
Which is just an amazing thing, and it's really, really happening. And for so many years, I mean, you know, the Ohio History Connection has been with the project for over a decade now.
Exactly a decade.
Exactly a decade now. And so there've been so many years of planning, and you came on board, you know, 5-ish years ago.
Yeah, I've been here 5 years.
Yeah, and so I think that's when the project really sort of began picking up some steam.
Yeah.
And now, you know, it's really, and there's all sorts of, you know, supporters and funders coming on board, which is just so amazing to see. And we still got more to,
yeah,
you know, more funds to raise, obviously. And, you know, it takes a village to build it. And
to build a village.
Exactly. If you love history podcasts, chances are you're going to love where history actually happened. That's where an Ohio History Connection membership comes in. With one membership, you get free admission to more than 50 historic sites and museums across Ohio, from ancient American Indian earthworks to natural history sites to iconic landmarks you've driven past 100 times and never stopped to explore. Members also enjoy a full year subscription to the award-winning Echoes magazine, discounted event tickets, behind-the-scenes experiences, and great reciprocal benefits, and more. And the best part, your membership directly supports the preservation of Ohio's stories, places, and collections, so they're here for generations to come. If history matters to you, and clearly it does, please join us. Become a member today at ohiohistory.org/join and start making some history of your own. We're talking about the soon-to-be museum, the Poindexter Village African American Museum. Early 2028 is when this is all going to, you know, manifest into reality and become the Poindexter Village African American Museum, which is just such an amazing thing. And I think it's so sorely needed if you look at the landscape of Central Ohio and Columbus, they're, you know, a place to tell the stories is really desperately needed.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming for the residents too and the folks. So we're looking at over a decade of work that has been put in to manifest this museum.
Wow. So
I'm excited to see this construction phase and everything come to life. But it's still a long road ahead of us. But I'd like to say that I feel like this project is a tool for unity. People are coming together, organizations that wouldn't normally probably partner in the same umbrella or find that this is a good reason to. And so it's been exciting to see all the support and watch this thing come to life.
So when the museum actually opens its doors in early 2028, you know, folks will get to experience, you know, like you said, all of the sort of modern trappings of what's in a museum. So there's you know, there's community spaces, there's learning spaces and learning centers, there's resource centers so folks can do deeper dives. Obviously, there's an exhibition space where both collections, both a permanent collection as well as maybe occasionally like traveling shows, exhibitions could be installed. What else? What am I leaving?
You covered it. The replicated apartments. I'm really excited about folks actually experiencing the apartments, and we'll do like a small little storytelling theater so people can hear oral histories and the stories, but I'm really excited about the Cura collaboration as well.
Tell me a little bit more about Cura. Cura stands for
the Center for Urban and Regional Analysis with Dr. Harvey Miller
at Ohio State.
At Ohio State.
Okay. What are they? What's the partnership there like?
Wonderful. Several years ago, I met them. Actually, 2021, I met Dr. Miller, and he was working on a Ghost Neighborhoods project with the Hanford Village area. And Hanford Village is a significant historically Black neighborhood. And so it sparked my interest. I learned more about it. And come to find out, he was building this technology that was using sunborn maps to see where the housing was before the freeways came through.
Wow.
And
So it literally reconstructs what the neighborhood used to look like.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And so that people can just time travel.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the fun part, because it does. I've heard people give that feedback. So now fast forward, he and his group have built out Poindexter Village.
I see.
And created what the original neighborhood looked like in 1940s, put back the buildings, really show you the change that has happened. And the experience is like a VR experience. So, you know, when you have people who have lived in that area look into this VR experience, they said they felt like they were time traveling. And really, I've seen people break into tears to be back in the space. And so we're really excited about that. And that'll be one of the exhibits that you experience so that you can see, you know, what was there.
And then you mentioned 3 apartments. So like from, you know, there'll be some, you know, funky wallpaper from the 70s. And
what's fun about that is we're working with some of the residents who actually live there to help us pick, you know, those details out. But I think I'm most excited about the Amina Robinson bedroom. Personally, I think that's going to be a great experience and a way to connect the story. Amina's done so much work on preserving the stories of the neighborhood, and it forces a collaboration between us and the Columbus Museum of Art, which is wonderful for us because we want to, you know, extend the story of her legacy, which they have. And, you know, she's got her home on Sunbury down the street there. So we're telling a full, complete story by sharing her bedroom experience in 1940. So I'm excited about that. But you'll see the 40s, the 60s, some significant changes happened to those buildings in the 60s, right? So you'll see that. And then on to the disinvestment and why we had to reimagine that neighborhood and essentially demo all the other buildings.
Right. Let's just, before we get off of the actual sort of, you know, what the museum is going to be. So we talked about all the various aspects of it. And so if you imagine like a, you know, it's almost like the shape of a U, you know, and the connecting spot is between the 2 buildings, the lobby and mezzanine and that kind of thing. But there's also the space in between, which is a giant courtyard. You know, where a lot of activity I hear is planned for the courtyard as well.
Yeah, the courtyard is a special. I love the courtyard and what's happening there. First, we want to acknowledge our partner right now with the Union Grove Baptist Church. When the buildings were selected to be left, they landlocked a lot of what Union Grove had hoped for. And for years, these 2 buildings have sat next to this historic church. I mean, this church was created in 1888.
Wow.
So this historic church has always been a part of the Poindexter Village buildings. And what we come to learn is that Reverend James Preston Poindexter, co-clergy of the Union Grove Baptist Church. So there was a significant reason to connect that story, on top of the fact that Union Grove is at the heart of the civil rights movement. So that's the whole other thing. But to partner with them and come together and imagine a space in a courtyard where they can use it and we can use it, and we're also paying homage to the pillar of the story, which is the faith piece. There really isn't a way to tell the African American experience without the church. So it's helping give us this complete narrative that is necessary to tell the full story. And then you got this courtyard where they can use it. We can come together. We've put a gazebo area in there for concerts and things like that, a statue to honor what used to be between those two buildings, which is, you know, life and community.
Right.
And, you know, and then we're, of course, the details, right? Those brick
Right.
campaigns and those
Sure.
museum, you
Every
know.
brick in the ground.
That's right.
So like I could have you know, or anybody watching this podcast
Yes.
could literally have their name on a brick that's in that courtyard.
Correct.
And be a small piece of Poindexter Village.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Let's talk. Well, maybe let's talk about some of the partners with this.
Okay.
You touched on Union Grove, which is so critical and foundational to it, like you just mentioned. But there's other folks like the James Preston Poindexter Foundation, which is a lot of the folks on that foundation used to live in Poindexter
That's
Village,
right.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about them.
So, you know, I love the James Preston Poindexter Foundation. I consider them family. I wouldn't be here today without their effort and their story. But basically, you know, when it came down to it that these buildings would be demoed,
Right.
the community started organizing.
I see.
And, you know, I think it's a testament to the strength of Poindexter Village and the community that would always naturally happen there. But when they saw that these buildings were being demoed as if there wasn't a story to tell,
Right.
they got together and
Right.
said, no, we have a story to tell. And there's a reason to preserve this story.
Wow.
And so they met regularly. You know, there were several key members who would go down to, you know, councils
City
and,
council,
and, you know, just be very assertive about wanting to be heard about this project. And then fast forward, you know, the James Preston Poindexter Foundation was created in 2014.
I see.
Once the decision was made by CMHA to save two of the buildings. And they were created with the goal to make sure that those two buildings were preserved as a museum. And so they've been doing the work ever since, trying to get the wheels on the track for this project.
Right.
And working alongside Ohio History Connection to be that support for the information and the story that's being told, to make sure we're telling it from an honest perspective.
That's fantastic. You know, it strikes me that that this project and this museum is, you know, it's 110% about community.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, the exciting thing about this, and talk about this a little bit, is that, you know, when the museum opens, you know, I think a lot of us envision it serving as a little bit more of a hub of sorts for the community, for that neighborhood, on the Near East Side, where, you know, there have been a lot of efforts, the Lincoln Theater, you know, a lot of efforts going on, and but, you know, to have a true kind of cultural hub that connects some of those stray dots, that can almost serve as like a cultural trail on the Near East Side.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
You know, when we pulled back, when I joined the project with Ohio History, the first thing we knew is that we needed to understand the vision of the space. And the thing that kept coming up was when we would work with community and work with the James Preston Poindexter Foundation or any partner, they would talk more about the things that were happening around Poindexter Village than actually the things that would, you know, were significant to the village. And so what we realized is the neighborhood is the museum, right? The neighborhood is helping to tell the stories and has actually always been a part of what makes Poindexter Village significant. So what came out of that work is that this is the hub of the culture. This is the connector. You have spaces like Lincoln Theater who have done a phenomenal job revitalizing and honoring the heritage and cultural, you know, preservation of the building.
Right.
But in that space, do you have an opportunity to really expand on the history?
Right.
And so with the museum, we have that opportunity to be the history hub of this rich neighborhood of, you know, so many landmarks, so many significant moments. and there's another thing. This is all made up of a people that are storytellers.
Right.
So
Right.
where do they get to go to tell
Right.
these stories and share these stories and make sure that they're passed down? And so that's,
And you could do performances
absolutely.
there, so it becomes multidisciplinary in a sense.
Well, the thing that you absolutely have to know about the Near East Side is it is an arts and culture
Right.
hub.
Right.
Like,
So you have the King Center,
You got the
obviously.
King Center.
Right.
You've got, we've got some significant institutions in this one neighborhood. You got
Right.
the King Center, Urban League, Lincoln Theater, the Pythian Theater.
Right.
These are not just any ordinary places. These are
Right.
significant historical
Right.
places. So we want to add to that.
Right.
We want to help connect those stories, help connect this history. We have so many spaces that, have been transitioned into housing, but they're old, significant buildings to the narrative of the neighborhood.
Right.
So how can we make sure that this history is being told and that these places have a space to actually share why they're significant?
So that the sum of the whole is greater than just the individual
Exactly.
places.
Exactly.
And it tells a larger story that needs to be told. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. For thousands of years, people gathered in places shaped with purpose, meaning, and a deep connection to the land, the Hopewell Ceremonial Earthworks. Today, these remarkable works of monumental landscape architecture, recognized as Ohio's first and only World Heritage Site, share a powerful global story of creativity, engineering, and community. A visit to the Hopewell Ceremonial Earthworks is more than a look into the past. It's an opportunity to walk through a landscape where, nearly 2,000 years ago, people came together to celebrate, connect, and observe the rhythms of the earth and sky. The story is still unfolding, and you can be part of it. Sign up for our newsletter at hopewellearthworks.org to stay connected to events, programs, and experiences at Ohio's only UNESCO World Heritage Site. Welcome back. Shelbi, I wanted to ask you, there's 1,000 different things that need to go on between where we sit now in summer of 2026 and the opening of the museum in early 2028. There's 1,000 things need to go on. Tell us, where does the project stand and what's coming next in terms of not so much the building of the museum and the bricks and mortar of that all, but for folks in the community who want to stay informed and will there be those opportunities?
Yes. One thing is the groundbreaking was a significant milestone for us in this project. So we're super excited to be entering in the construction phase. We're finally here.
Yes.
But, what we've tried to do throughout this process is always stay open for community to engage us in this project. And so we're super proud of some of the signature programs that have started. We've got the annual Poindexter Village Drum Circle.
Oh, sure.
It's always the first Saturday of August from 12 to 5. And this is significant because we are not only having a drum circle, which is a lot of fun, but we're inviting the residents who live in Poindexter today and the residents who lived in Poindexter back then to come together and feel community amongst each other. So I feel like we make that happen. There's a lot of folks who have moved into the new Poindexter that don't understand the significance of the buildings that were there. And so what we're doing is we're allowing them to be informed, but then also inviting them to participate. And so another project that we do is the annual Youth Art Challenge.
Yes.
And we've got a lot of participation from the youth in that area who are learning about the neighborhood and learning about the history of this place through the challenge.
Right.
And the challenge is usually open for a significant period of time, invites K through 12, and it's usually and always going to be around art. So whether it's a poem or visual arts, we're challenging them to learn about history and then be inspired to create something around what they've learned.
That's great.
And so those signature programs have allowed people to be engaged with the project, learn more about it, and then go ahead and get their names, inscribed in the history of this space, right? We've got these student winners who already feel a part of this space and this place that isn't even open yet, right?
That's great.
But yeah, and then continuing to work with the community is definitely always on the front of what we're trying to do. We want this to be a community-centered space,
Right.
A people-centered space.
Right.
And so we can't do that in a box. We have to always make sure that we're connecting, that we're listening, and doing the best we can to, collect as many stories as we can while we can. There's so many stories.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. One thing I think I neglected to bring up was that, one of the most important partners in all of this, or a couple of partners in all of this, are the folks who are literally helping design the building, and the folks that are doing that construction, which are Moody Nolan Architects, and then Smoot.
Yes.
Talk about them. They've been great partners along the way also.
I love the piece about how they're part of the history of the neighborhood already. So, we don't get to select who, we don't get to just handpick folks.
Right.
But they rose to the top of being able to work with us. And then I'm recently learning that this is the same group that now 40 years ago helped build King Arts Complex. And, we're standing on this kind of tradition in this community of, this historically Black company, the best architects in the country. And then you got Smoot, that's also significant historically Black organization. So it's been a treat to be making history and with history makers. And so I love working with them, and we're really grateful for what they've come up with on the design, because again, we can't really alter the building. So how can we make this one space that feels like something? And I think they've done a tremendous job at a design that we're going to be proud of.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know there's, from personal experience, we work with a team of no less than 8 or 10 folks on a weekly basis who are very close to the project here at the Ohio History Connection. And each of them has, a story to tell about their involvement and their participation in the project. But I'm curious about yours. I mean, you've been with the History Connection for about 5 years. What does, taking off your project lead hat for a minute, and you as Shelbi, what has this project sort of meant to you personally?
It's a huge responsibility because a lot of these folks have known me since I was a kid. I'm born and raised in Columbus. I grew up at Second Baptist Church, which is Reverend Poindexter's church. And
some of them still think like you're 15.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
you're like, I'm not 15.
Yeah, I have to remind them all the time. I'm an old lady. I have a kid. I'm married, but it's been fun, actually, and very humbling. There's a lot of moments where, it's kind of unbelievable what's happening. And like I said, I feel a huge responsibility to get this done. When the opportunity came to do the work, I was already kind of in it anyway. I had several elders that I had been working with through the James Preston Poindexter Foundation who had pretty much, asked me to consider this position. And I think that in and of itself, that's when it became real, that, I could make a difference, that I could help make this happen. And so to me, it's personal and professional. And I'm just grateful that I've found a family with Ohio History Connection, on top of already having my family within the Near East Side community. And, I think it really hit me at the groundbreaking. I knew every soul there. And the work had felt like it was paying off because people wanted to be present there. And the entire team was there. Everyone was happy. And then you had the community happy. So it was a great moment, and I'm excited for what's to come.
That's fantastic. it really gave me a feeling similarly of like, oh, this is what it's going to be like when it's open.
Yeah.
And just that feeling that, there wasn't a person there that didn't have a smile on their face, and just like, oh, this is
happening.
this is bigger. Well, and it's bigger than just, a building.
That's true.
And it's really about way more than that. Well, thank you, Shelbi.
Thanks,
I
Jerry.
really appreciate your time and your insight and your expertise on this. And we will stay close to the project and be sharing frequent updates with folks as the project moves along. You can stay up to date on progress of the Poindexter Village African American Museum by following the Ohio History Connection on social media at Ohio History or at Poindexter Village. If you have feedback about this podcast, whether it's great or less than great, we'd love to hear it. Please send us an email at ohiofiles@ohiohistory.org and let us know your thoughts or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. We're just starting out, so it helps to subscribe and spread the word and share as much as possible. For everyone at the Ohio History Connection, I'm Jerry Dannemiller. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time we share stories from the Ohio Files.